don't look at the metrics, you will make yourself miserable. 8 hours of editing, who has the time? You'll hate your voice, you'll hate the metrics, you'll hate the quality of your microphone, and you'll just be like, fuck this. So used to hearing your voice in 1.5 speed. You learn so much more about yourself. You sharpen the hell up. You do not let confidence be the reason that you don't start.
Welcome to Earning Ears. It's great to have you here. It's been a while since I've recorded an episode. How are you going?
Thrilled to be on the other side of the mic. I actually feel like this is meant to happen in an alternative universe. I always wanted to see what it was like to be interviewed by you, Adam, especially after our long history. So,
well, don't get your hopes up. It's not going to be that great. I think I've done...
it's downhill from the intro.
I think I've probably done, I reckon, at least 200 interviews. But it's been a while since I've done them. And so, it definitely doesn't feel like, just jumping back on the bike again. I feel like you need to do a few.
Yeah, we were saying off mic, like even a few weeks off of interviewing, I feel rusty. Like it is one of those things,
let's just get past this awkward part and tell me about like your first discovery of podcasts and podcasting. What was like the first show that you've ever listened to?
Oh my gosh. So when I was in Detroit, I've never told this story before. I was in Detroit helping with their headquarters were there. I was a consultant, a tech consultant, and I discovered a podcast called, don't laugh, Fat Mascara, which is all about beauty and which products are great. And it was an American show, these two New York hosts that were, I guess, working for like big fashion magazines. And it was my first entry into podcasting, and they had like this great rapport, but really it was freezing cold. It was literally snowing in Detroit, and I was coming from Brisbane. So, and the walk from where I was staying in Dearborn, Michigan to the Detroit factory, I would listen to that podcast on the way. And it was lovely. That was my first intro.
A very highly, like what year was this?
It would have been like 20.
Okay, so kind of podcasting had been around. Like I started listening to podcasts in around 2012, and I love this entrepreneur guy in San Diego. I fell in love with his podcast, and his show was just produced in like his office at home with very kind of lo-fi stuff. And you listening to that show, was it how well produced was it? And at that point, like was it kind of top tier stuff, people from NPR producing it, or was it kind of a bit of in-house just figuring it out?
It was very in-house figuring it out, and oftentimes even the hosts themselves would say things like, I forget anyone's listening, like it was almost like they were just on a call. And it was pre-COVID, right? So people weren't actually necessarily used to recording digitally, virtually in that way, or having that many meetings that way too. So it did feel novel.
See, that's the podcasting that I fell in love with. That style stuff. It frustrates me, all of this, really highly produced kind of and all the radio stations getting involved and all that kind of stuff. That frustrates me a little bit. I really like to kind of just Scrappy, like the early days, Scrappy, figure it out. And it was just the amazing conversations and access to such specific knowledge. That's what made me fall in love with podcasting anyway.
I mean, I have a foot in each hedge. I don't know if that's an expression. I made that up. I get why you need good quality visuals, and we obviously adopt them. But I agree with you sometimes, especially if that's how people are starting out with high gloss, high, like 3 cameras, like all of this stuff. I feel like you as a host doesn't develop the critical interview skills, because you're kind of getting carried away with the aesthetic, and it's like, are you actually going to be able to carry an hour-long conversation?
Yeah.
And are you focusing on the right things?
I totally get why we are going in the direction we're going. YouTube, video. As everyone wants to kind of up the game, you got to kind of keep up. And so I think really great quality video and audio is just kind of table stakes these days. Now let's transition, because we have talked now for 5 minutes, and me being a podcast host, I haven't even kind of given the audience the hook of the reason why they should be listening. But you are the host of one of the Day One Network shows. You're on the Day One Network at the moment. You're the host of In the Blink of AI, which has done over 300 or close to around, roughly, last time I checked about a month ago, 350,000 downloads in about, I don't know, 14, 15 months or something like that since the show's been going. That's incredible.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not like millions of downloads an episode, but you don't need millions of downloads an episode. We'll get there one day. Jumping from your walking down the street to work in Detroit, listening to your show in 2017, listening to the first show you ever discovered, to getting behind the mic at Blink of AI, what made you want to do that? Like, where did that curiosity, or like why did that happen?
I'll admit to you, Adam, when we first talked about it, I had been wanting to get behind the mic for easily a year at least, that I was consciously aware of. It was two things. It was one, an admiration for these hosts that do such an incredible job and add so much joy or knowledge or awareness or like just, a layer of entertainment to my life, that I respected them and admired them and wanted to emulate them. And the second reason is, frankly, I just wanted to see what goes behind it. Like, technically, what does it take to build a show? Now, I know nowhere near the end-to-end level that you do, but I did just want to know, like, if I was to do this, what would that look like and how hard is it? So there was a curiosity element as well.
How hard has it been? Let's give the audience that. How hard has it been to build the show?
Like you are not telling me to say this. I did try and do it on my own. I got a pod track, which looks like this. I've still got it to help me record on location. I was a university postgrad student. They let me use their sound booth. I had that for free. I had the network and startups. I already had everything at my disposal, but the editing process is what put me off. Like 8 hours of editing. Who has the time? Like, I had a full-time job, and to show that loyalty to listeners, I just couldn't commit to it. I recorded 2 episodes with 2 amazing people. It never saw the light of day. It's really hard. It's not like that, all of that at my fingertips, which is already hard to come by. It was still another layer before you could actually repeatedly do it.
You had the intro track as well, recorded by a musician, ready to kind of go as well. Oh, wow.
Ballpark Music is a famous ARIA award-winning band, and I'm friends with Jen in the band, and I got introduced to the drummer of the band. So you'll still hear in the Blink outro, like, thanks to Dan Hansen. That's who that is. It's the drummer of Ballpark Music.
Award winner? We need to mention that more.
We need to. I know we need to. I know you really do.
It is hard, I guess, to, especially there's a lot of pressure for people to hear the advice. To grow a show, you need to be showing up weekly at least. That is very daunting. And I agree with that, in the sense that it is very hard to grow an audience. And I think the best way to grow an audience is to be throwing out that net as often as you can, so that you can hopefully, every episode is a net. It will hopefully pull in an extra listener that, hopefully stays. And so I agree in that sense, that you should be publishing regularly. But also the other part of it is just repetition, getting those reps in, making those, as Mr. Beast says, those 1%, I think he says, those 1% improvements, every video, make 100 videos before you even start thinking about, why am I only getting 100 people listening? So for those 2 reasons, I think it's super important to publish weekly, but I don't think it should be forced on people, because that is the quickest way to just pod fade, to just get overwhelmed by it all, trying to keep up with it.
Pod fade.
Oh, you don't know that one?
I learned a new word.
Yeah, because a lot of people just kind of go really hard into it to start with. You know, they get 6 episodes in and they've put in a lot of effort. Like you see, those 8-hour edits while also juggling a full-time job and trying to find guests and booking that in and making sure that the production looks schmick. And then, 6 episodes in and they're getting, 80, 60 listeners an episode. And it just doesn't make sense. It's just so much work for, yeah.
If that, I'm sure I got less than that in the early days. And, I get asked a lot, I'm sure you definitely do, Adam, about, I'm looking at all my data and my statistics and I've got it ready. And I'm almost like, you're looking at the wrong thing in the early days because all that's going to do is disenfranchise you. What you should be focusing on, my hot take, is yourself. Listen back to the episodes. How could I be a better host? There's all sorts of things I was doing in the early days that, some I've really improved on, some I still need work on. And it's my own self-critique. Don't interrupt the guest. Don't even just like filler words. I used to go, yep, yep, yep. And I'd listen to myself like, stop it. Things like that. You have to listen to your own episodes. And looking at the data isn't helpful, but trying to make the best show you can possibly make is helpful.
Yeah, I'm trying very consciously not to do it now that you've mentioned it. They're like, you have to, you have to be, you have to be seen to be actively listening, but doing it with those non-verbal cues instead of the yeah.
You see me doing it, right?
I really like the nod. I just like the little nod to show you that I'm listening. Okay, that's great advice. So for someone brand new that is thinking, I'm sure you probably have a lot of people coming up to you now saying, interested in starting their own podcast. After they've seen what you've done, what advice would you give them in those very early days? Before they kick the show off?
My first thing is, do you listen to podcasts? You and I clearly are huge fans of podcasts. We really respect the medium. We respect the hosts. We admire the format, and we probably have an opinion on what we like and don't like. You really need that before you start, I feel. These people that are like, I'm going to be the host of a podcast because it gets me a network, it gets me brand exposure, I look like a thought leader. AI is a thing. I want to look like I'm in AI. That's not the reason to do it, because then when all these hard parts that we've talked about come up, which they inevitably will, you don't have any joy and love and passion for the medium, I feel. So that's my first thing, is knowing what you love and being an actual fan. And then the second thing is, it's really not about if you can have a podcast, because I do genuinely think most people could become great hosts if they've got that level of passion. Do you have something interesting to say? Because it's not even about the topic, but do you have a great network that you want to use if you're doing interviews? Do you have an interesting topic that you want to talk about? Can you do that week after week and still have... I'm really lucky that I'm in the AI space. It's moving so quick. There are always so many things to speak about and so many experts to talk to, and still have stuff we've never touched before. Whereas not everything is so evergreen. I love you brought up
the guests in an interview, because there are a lot of different formats a podcast can take. An interview one is obviously the most common, but also very hard to do well. Just thinking about the guest selection at the moment, when you started the show, and then how has it also evolved over time, your guest selection and your guest strategy?
Strategy is a strong word for what it was. Initially, it was people I admired in the industry, as simple as that. And, I had incredible guests from day dot, and I stand by that. These are incredible people doing incredible stuff, but the nature of founders and, what the market likes, 14, 15 months ago is not necessarily what the market's interested in now. The SaaS-pocalypse that's happening right now, everyone was obsessed with B2B SaaS, that long ago. So even though the guests were always amazing, the guest philosophy and strategy has changed somewhat. And, I have had incredible guests like Tracy Spicer, who's a journalist. I'm evolving my strategy to be not just AI technologists, but AI thought leaders. She wrote a book on AI, but happens to have, that humanities background. Ethics experts, ARIA musicians. AI is really affecting everyone now in such a meaningful way. And so my strategy is, how can the listeners get the most value from my guests now? Not just necessarily the person that's got the best LinkedIn profile.
I just learned a new word. It's apocalypse. I didn't know that was a thing. That's a cool word. That's better than Podscape.
It's coming to Australia.
Okay, so and I think that's really smart to kind of take it just the outside, just the kind of AI founders and operators to everyone that's getting impacted by AI. And that is true. I think that's an advantage in your show, is that because AI is so fast moving, there's just so much to talk about. Moving on to the growth of the show, which I think has been pretty phenomenal. What have you seen? Because I think when a lot of people start a show, all they do is they post to social media. They post that one clip on their personal LinkedIn or whatever, and that's their promo done. And maybe they post some audio, some clips and some audiograms. But you have, now tell me, I don't know if this has been strategic on your part, but you have kind of got this whole ecosystem going. You've got your newsletter now. You're always at events. And you're very outgoing, and I think that is a huge advantage as well, growing a show. What has been your approach? What's been working for you to grow the audience?
Early days, I did it while breaking out into cold sweats as a means to grow the show. I did not want to post anything because I felt icky. I felt like it was too self-promotional. It's already really hard to have your face and your voice. Like, everyone hates the sound of their own voice, let alone video clips of themselves. And then for me to promote it on top of that on such a public forum, terrifying. Hated it. Did it because otherwise the show dies. Like, no one will be aware of it, let alone watch it. And so my initial tactic, which I don't have to think about anymore because that muscle has been developed where I just don't get as shy anymore, was, how can I add value? If I'm going to promote my podcast, how is this LinkedIn post genuinely going to teach people something? How does the LinkedIn post itself genuinely make people like think a little bit? And then I felt less bad about doing it. I was like, I genuinely think this will help you if I share this. And then week after week, showing up and being consistent, your audience trusts you and you can start posting about other things. And then when you promote the podcast, it doesn't feel like this transactional thing anymore. And now I post the most ridiculous stuff on there as well as the podcast, and the community kind of somehow like takes it all in with good faith. Has there been
any kind of offline, because obviously it's an online medium, a podcast. It makes sense to just promote it online, but I think the real 1% growth increases are all the little things that you can do offline as well. Have you seen that, just talking to people? And I don't know how else you're promoting it offline, but like, is there anything else working that isn't digital?
Well, just a quick anecdote. I think the highlight of like my year last year was I was at Google has this flagship event in Sydney, and for a very long time, I attributed any success to myself with the brand power that is Google. That's the only reason anyone cares about me, is because I work at Google. And I was at the Google event and someone came up to me that I'd never met before, and they said, "Oh, you've got that podcast. I'm used to hearing your voice in 1.5 speed." And I was like, oh my God.
You should have started talking really fast.
I just thought that was the funniest thing ever. I know, I was like kind of weirded out because I was like, do I speak
insulted
slowly?
by that?
Like, what is that?
They're trying to listen to you faster?
Well, no, but also, I know it's a long form podcast. Yeah. I kind of get it, Adam. I'm like, okay, if you need to listen to it in half an hour, I get it. But it was really nice because I was like, normally I feel like it's a one way, like, I've got a podcast, you should listen to it, tell me what you think. And people are really nice about it. But yeah, that was like my first ever. Oh my gosh, you know me out of that. But to actually answer your question, how I promote it in person, you know, your best promotion is always through other people that listen to it. So if you get other people to introduce you, and whenever someone asks for my bio, they could talk about Google, they could talk about 15 years in tech, they could talk about other things. I'm like, no. Number one, hosted in the blink of AI. And then people forget the rest. So that's how you get, like, even if you go to an event, you know, even if you work somewhere full time, right underneath it, podcast host. And then start the conversation.
Is there anything that you have? And this question may be cut because maybe everything's just been win-win-win. But has there been anything that you've tried that just hasn't worked to grow the show?
Like, don't cut anything because when people ask me about podcast metrics, I'm often like, please don't look at the metrics. You will make yourself miserable. Like, even now, we have been doing it for over a year, and I know because you told me, and everyone tells me, podcasting is a long game. My favorite shows like Acquired, 7 years in before they even quit their full-time jobs. Like, these are long games. And so, like, if I'm honest, the things that aren't working are working, but just slower than I would like. I would like to be a household name. We're biggest show in APAC, maybe. Like, what's that? Like, I want to be bigger. I want to be on the tech charts. I want to be huge. And so there's a frustration with how slow it can sometimes
my head has just gone in a million different directions. I love that ambition that you have to be at top of the tech charts because I think, oh man, how am I going to talk about this? Being the founder of the Day One Network, I'll just say this, not all of our hosts are that ambitious, and I really see that as a difference. I really see that passion that you have for the show to actually be translating to how fast the show grows. And I think I wish I could instill that in everyone that wants to start a podcast, is that it's not just a side hustle. It's not just this fun thing that you do on the weekend or after work. If you want it to go somewhere, you really have to put your entire self into it. And I see that again and again with you. And I think that has made a big difference.
I've liked our relationship for that reason, Adam, because when we started it, I didn't feel the pressure. So two things can be true. When you start the pod, if you put too much pressure on yourself, you'll hate it. You'll hate your voice. You'll hate the metrics. You'll hate the quality of your microphone. And you'll just be like, fuck this. Sorry for swearing.
I'll put the little explicit symbol.
But if you can... Yeah, thank you. But if you can be okay in that messy early stage with, frankly, like, I really appreciated having a team at Day One to be like, guys, give me brutal feedback. Like, we were really honest with each other, but I at least had people to vibe off of, no, that was really good. I really liked that episode. That it meant something when you guys said that was really good, because we'd also seen when it wasn't the best, or when I gave you horrible audio quality and you had to somehow polish a turd. And I was like, I'm so sorry. I don't know why it was such shit quality. Please fix, and just dumped it at you guys. And we could turn it into something that I was still proud to publish. So it's a long rambling way of saying you need to be ambitious to get it to golden. But I also think that in the early days when you're maybe like, not proud isn't the right word, but you're not, it's not where you want it to be. You feel like you can see the path. I used to listen
to, again, a bunch of things come to my mind right now. One, I used to listen to this show called Startup by Gimlet Media. You've probably heard of Gimlet. Guy used to work for NPR. And his mentor, I think, was Ira Glass, who used to say, in the beginning, you'll have this amazing taste for what you want to create. In your mind, you know exactly how you want it to sound and be. But because you've not done the reps and you've kind of, you haven't built up that muscle, you haven't built up the tools, what you create is just not going to match up with what you want to be. And it just takes that rep and you got to suck before you're good. And you just got to keep doing it, and eventually your skill will match your taste. And I think that's relevant to what you were just talking about. And then the other thing that comes to my mind about, and I love that you brought this up, is, do you like Gary Vee? Have you ever had looked at any of his content?
Oh, how do I answer that in a sentence? I think he's brilliant, but like, I stopped listening because I felt like it was too.
I think very early on his stuff was great. I think I haven't listened to him for years, but I love this line that he has, which is I'm going to mess it up. Something about micro hustle, macro patience, where in the short term you've got to just get in there and suck and really work hard, but it's going to suck for a long time, so you have to be patient for a long time. You've got to want to be at the top of the tech charts. You've got to do everything it takes, but it's not going to happen in a week, a month, a year. So you need to do everything in the short term without getting that reward, but it'll eventually come if you keep doing those micro things. That's how I translated that anyway.
Fully agree. And I love that micro hustle. I mean, let's remove the fourth wall for a second. Literally, like yesterday in our Slack channel, in the Day One Slack channel, I have an idea of a certain kind of show within the Blink of AI podcast, not changing the interviews, but I'm like, guys, I am desperate to try this new format. And it's very yes and. And, like I put out part 1 of 2 and I'm like, guys, tell me what you think. And we've still got that kind of hustle culture a year and a half in. I think if you ever lose that, I think you have to constantly think, like, how do we make this even better?
But isn't it frustrating? Yes, we're building something here. Like you've built something amazing with Blink. I'm trying to build something amazing with Day One. But you've always got to be innovating and hustling and trying to figure out. But then nothing is ever truly finished. Everything is always messy. And I find that so frustrating.
There's so many loose threads. And like even this concept that we're trying, 6 months I've been wanting to do this. And I'm like, well, we can't do it if it's too shit because we've built like this beautiful consistency in the show. So let's not throw a grenade in there. But then how do we innovate while not it's exhausting to have that constant strategic.
You should do an episode on in like a bit of a homage is that to Acquired. Like do like a really kind of deep dive AI style show like what they've done, but with the Blink of AI flavor. That'd take a lot of editing.
I'm obsessed with them. but I'd do it forever. I love those guys.
Where are we going to next? We've kind of talked about, I asked the question of what didn't work. We've already talked about what has worked. What else do you want to try? What else? Do you have any experiments in your mind to grow the Blink of AI brand in the future? What's coming in?
Can't tell all our secrets, Adam. We can't tell everyone the secrets. We've got something big coming. Yeah, we've got something big coming. But I think it's not a secret that we have smashed the Aussie ecosystem. We've really done a great job of Blink in the Aussie ecosystem. I can see it because we get tagged all the time, from people that I don't know. This morning I had someone say they were at the Easter long weekend and they had streamed the show because it's long form, it's episode. So you need like long drives it's great for and things like that. And I'm constantly surprised and delighted by that. But I think we need to be pushing bigger, and that means in other markets, if I'm honest. And the show shouldn't be just Aussie.
Great little hint there. I know your show is a little different in the sense that like, when we work with Blackbird and we're trying to grow our client roster to work with a lot more investors as well, and a lot more business, a lot more kind of startups and scale ups. So when they start a show, it's really got to be tied to deal flow and leads and how it helps achieve business objectives. For you, how are you measuring whether or not you should continue to do the show? Like, what are the kind of KPIs that you're measuring your show against for yourself?
Yeah, you mentioned the newsletter recently, like in the show. And the newsletter's great, right? Because a newsletter, you can see who's clicking what and how many people have viewed it, but also their emails and like this incredible stuff, which is really great. And with podcasts, it's like, Well, we don't know where that stuff is going. We can't draw a clear line, a red thread between listeners and where they come from and how, like, whether they're decision makers or not. But what I have noticed with the podcast is it's grown my LinkedIn. And with my LinkedIn, I'm noticing trends of their decision makers, their CTOs, their founders, their execs. Yep. These are the people that listen to the show. Cool. And, we've got the Blink podcast page on LinkedIn and we can see that. But also anecdotally, it has opened up so many doors because, frankly, guests want to be on a podcast and they want to be interviewed by a safe pair of hands that is going to ask great questions that listeners genuinely want to hear and not just be a sales pitch, but also not paint them in a terrible light where they're like, why did I do that? You just made me look bad. And so I've grown, like, the people I've had on the show, the VP of Dropbox from San Francisco, people that are never in Australia, they're coming to Australia, they want to be on the podcast. And there's things like that where it's like, without the podcast, there's no way they're talking to me. Like, I'm great, but like not that great.
Network, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, I'm loving. I love that you've started the newsletter, and yes, that's you get a direct line to your audience, not your customers. You get a direct line to your audience, and yeah, could be customers.
And you get
to see who they are, and that's very hard to do with a podcast. Actually, you can kind of get a bit of a blurry idea of who's listening through, like you said, LinkedIn. You can see that CEO, product managers, people in IT industry are listening or engaging with my content, but it's really great to see people's emails sign up, and you can email them and say, hey, you listen to the show, do you want to have a chat, and that's really cool.
But can I also say, tell me if you think I'm wrong, but if I'm subscribed to a Substack or a blog of any sort, I might really admire that person. I might really, really be a huge fan of them. There is something different about hearing someone's voice. I feel like the connection is stronger. I strongly believe that just because you can't tie a direct link doesn't mean that isn't a stronger relationship.
You don't need to ask me that twice, because I definitely think that podcasting, long form video is the best way to grow unfortunately, it's kind of like a one-way relationship, but like so much trust from, and that's why people are just going to sign up to your email list when they get the chance, because they've listened to you for so long and they just trust you. And I don't think anything does it better than a podcast, but I'm very biased. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but I think the listeners that might be like, of course we would say that we do what we do. Think about it. Like, think about the journalists that you might read a news.com article versus the people that you listen to on a podcast. I bet you do feel a warmer connection with the ones that you listen to on a podcast. I just, like, sanity check that one if you're listening. I strongly feel that way.
You read an article, and a lot of the times I don't even look at the byline. Like, I don't even know who's written it, and I never think of them or read another article they've done ever again.
Yeah.
But you listen to someone for 30 minutes and you learn something from them, and you go hunting them down for the next episode, and then that just compounds. Yeah, I love podcasting.
Exactly.
So for people, we might start to wrap this up now. I think we've covered a lot of ground. I hope that we've talked about stuff that's been helpful for, like, if there's someone out there thinking about starting a podcast. But as I mentioned, we've got the Day One Network, and then we've got WTD1 Media. And I really want to be able to do what we've done for you with a lot of other people in Australia and in the tech ecosystem. But what advice, this journey that you've been on, like, why should someone, in your mind, how can a podcast help them? Why should someone start one?
Honestly, it is, I have had my career as a minimum transformed, but also my confidence transformed in the process, because there is nothing more humbling than building and creating a podcast from the ground up of the vision you want with the guests you want, and then having to promote it. Like, the end to end of that, really humbling. But what happens in the process is you learn so much more about yourself. you sharpen the hell up. You know, you can't phone it in, or it's very obvious. You are forced to learn about a person, an industry, a new topic. So I feel like my brain is sharper because I have to learn about the energy industry one week, and then copyright law the next week. Like, I feel like you get sharper in the process. And then, frankly, if you've seen my LinkedIn journey over the last year, my growth has been insane, incredible. But my confidence has really, like, before I joined the call, I just posted the most random stuff, and I'm like, I back myself. Like, the journey has been incredible. I think podcasting does so many more things than just grow your profile.
Andy, whoever is listening and editing this episode, it's about 3:45
Clip it up.
On a what are we on? Tuesday afternoon. Can you go on April 7th? Can you go on to Georgie's LinkedIn and grab those screenshots of whatever she just posted and put them up?
You'll know it when you see it.
Like, we could do an entire other episode, I think, on your. I've already used the word phenomenal in this episode. I need to think of another word. I don't know. No, I just didn't want to show people how small my vocabulary was.
I think I butchered it too, mate.
Your LinkedIn growth has been incredible. Is that one a good enough word? Incredible? That's a separate episode altogether. Like, what you've done there, like, and how you've done it. Like, I am gobsmacked. But I shouldn't admit this on air probably, but, like, generally speaking, social media is a bloody enigma to me. I just don't get. It's not so much an enigma as it. I just hate it. I just can't do it very well. It takes so much willpower to get on there and do it. But you're just smashing it out of the park. And I think that ties back to, like, your love of people. I'm not saying I don't love people, but your love of people and your, like, wanting to help and talk.
Yeah, no, I love the socials.
I think that really helps as well. That you love being on there and doing it.
I get this a lot, and Adam, like, oh, you're killing it on LinkedIn. But like, I wanted to kill it on Instagram. Just my audience on there is like, sure, like 3 likes. So it is funny, isn't it? Like, it depends on the medium. I'm like a TikTok girly on the inside, but just no followers.
Well,
there.
once you get your LinkedIn up to 1 million followers, you just start promoting the hell out of your other social channels on there and get on.
Just switch over, yeah. I'm hot now,
what
guys.
What haven't we to just kind of really bring this home? I always like to ask this question at the end, just in case. What haven't I asked you that you really wanted to talk about today? What is something that could be really useful to someone that's wanting to grow their personal brand, but maybe I haven't asked you that question?
The most important thing is that it's not about being a confident extrovert. You do not need to be someone that thinks of themselves as a public speaker. In fact, if anything, you're probably going to have a more carefully crafted message if you're not just excited to hear your own voice. Do not let confidence be the reason that you don't start. Think of all the things that a podcast or being more out there could do for you, and what you might be leaving on the table if you don't try. I strongly, strongly think that is important to keep in mind. And I wasn't confident at the beginning either.
Perfect.
No one really is.
Thanks, Georgie.
I loved this. Thanks, mate.